Chair, we are at the top of the hour, but we are 3 shy of quorum, so I suggest we give it just a couple minutes.
Sure. Absolutely.
Welcome, Vice Chair. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Vice Mayor Duff. How are you?
Great. How are you? Nice to see everybody this morning.
Yeah, a lot of smiling faces.
Yeah. Everybody going to National League this weekend? NLC?
I'll be going. I'm leaving Sunday. Well, actually Saturday night on a red eye, 11:57. So I don't know if you've heard, but we have the Ostrich Festival is in town in Chandler, and we're having. Have you heard of Walker Hayes, the country artist?
No, I'm not very versed on country. Sorry.
How about Nelly? Do you remember Nelly, the hip hop artist? They will both be at the Ostrich Festival. So
Well,
I expect
priorities.
everybody to be dancing in
You've
the
got your
front
bases
row.
covered, Chair.
What's that?
I said you've got your bases covered. That's quite a variety of music you're providing at the Ostrich.
Well, now that I'm going to hustle for the Chamber of Commerce in the city, there's the Four Tops, the Beach Boys are coming. Uncle Cracker, remember them? There's one more big one. Oh, Flo Rida. Remember Flo Rida? Like it was like the 2000s, like hip hop guy. It's going to be a party. And it's going to be a party. That's what we do in Chandler. And turkey legs. We have turkey legs. So anyway.
I would have come for the Beach Boys, but I'm not sure about some of the others, but then I'm old. So, you know.
The Beach Boys put on, they came 3 or 4 years ago and they put on a party. It was packed. Yep. It was packed. Probably the biggest crowd we've ever had out there.
Chair, do you think the turkey legs make the ostriches nervous?
I think it makes them feel, no, it's rather turkeys than them, right?
It's like the Chick-fil-A, like eat chicken, you know, the cows.
Yeah. Too funny.
So let me send out a reminder to the committee. There we go. We got one more. We're just 1 shy of quorum now, I think. Let's see.
We need one more.
Hi, who just joined us? Hi, if you just joined us by iPhone, could you let us know who you are, please?
I'm sorry, it's Karina. I'm having a hard time logging in through my laptop. It gives me an error message.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Hopefully we can get that sorted out before you present.
Yes.
Chair, we are still 2 shy of quorum. I'll go ahead and send an email reminder to everyone. And so give me just 1 moment, please.
Thank you. While you're doing that, is there any business we can do without quorum before, and then if we get quorum, we can kind of plug through so we can keep this at about an hour?
Yes, Chair, you and Vice Chair could lead the conversation about the possibility of returning in person for meetings at MAG and just gauge opinion.
Okay. So I guess we'll just open up the conversation. I think we want to consider having in-person meetings again, have that face-to-face conversation. Obviously, more of a hybrid approach, I think, is what Kelly's alluding to, so that we can be there in person and then have those conversations after the meeting that I think are so valuable as it relates to creating that action list that we need to do. But so I think you kind of know where I stand on moving forward and doing a hybrid approach to this, but I'd like to get some feedback from folks. Maybe go ahead.
I guess I'll step in. I've never met any of you in person, and it would be nice to meet you in person. On the other hand, the schedules are busy and it takes a lot of time to drive to the destination. So again, hybrid, and then perhaps focus meetings where we would all be there, but not every meeting would say, let's have everybody there. Something like that combination.
Great feedback.
I would agree, because sometimes the drive time would cut into something else for me, and I'd hate to have to do these meetings in my car. So
good point.
And I'm open to hybrid. I do miss meeting in person. I think, as you alluded to, the conversations after the meeting are valuable. So I'm open to whatever the committee decides. But if we are going to meet in person next time, I will be there.
Okay. Well, I'm not hearing any strong objections to the hybrid. I think that's a gentle way for us to approach this, and it allows people the opportunity and the choice if something's going on that doesn't allow them to be there. So without any strong objections, Vice Mayor Duff, do you have anything to add, or would you, are you okay with us kind of making the decision to go to a hybrid?
Yeah, I agree with the comments. There are times in our schedules, I know for me in Mesa, we have study session on Thursday mornings. And if it gets out at a reasonable time, I'm fine. But otherwise, yeah, I could miss half the meeting in travel time, half of the, our meeting. So I like the hybrid approach, and like was mentioned, I'm sorry, Janik, Miss Janik, having certain meetings are focus meetings to really try to make a gallant effort to have everybody together. If we're doing some kind of in-depth discussion about something, I think it's good to have all our ears and eyes engaging together. So thank you.
Oh, well said. Well said. So I think with that information and that feedback, thank you. I think we'll go ahead and move to a hybrid for our next meeting for sure. And I look forward to meeting everyone in person that can make it. And I cross my fingers that nothing will get in my way of being there in person. So that concludes this discussion. Thank you.
Chair, would it also be helpful if the MAG staff sent out a travel time reminder on either side of the meeting for those who will be attending in person, so they can actually have that block on their calendar?
Well said. Yes, good idea.
We'll plan on that for the June meeting. So it'll say travel, HSCIC, and then the meeting time, and then travel on the other end. And we will definitely have a hybrid option available for those who are able to participate from their offices.
Super.
Chair, I have sent out a reminder regarding quorum. I think we can go ahead and move forward with the meeting. We just will not call it to order, or we can continue to wait at your discretion.
Well, we're 7 minutes in. Let's let that email simmer for a bit. We might get somebody that pops in lately. There's nothing else on the agenda that I can see that we can review, but we can certainly go through the first presentation. I'd like to make sure that we have quorum to be able to approve the minutes from the last meeting, but we can extend those to the following month if we needed to. So let's not call to order, but we'll call to the audience. Is that appropriate to do at this time?
Yes, Chair, we did not receive any public comments prior to this meeting, so we are able to move forward with the first speaker if you would like.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward to our homelessness prevention and Surprise. I've heard some really good things coming out of that, out of Surprise, and I think it's a great opportunity to share with the rest of the committee here, so we can steal with pride some of the successes that you're seeing in Surprise. So without any further ado, let's move forward with item number 4.
I guess that's me, right?
Adam, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Okay, you're going to share my presentation. Okay.
There you go.
Yes, perfect. I'm going to move you guys out of the way. Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to share with you all what Surprise has been up to the last few years and where we're going in the future in our response to homelessness and affordable housing. Do I need to ask for the slides to move forward? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'll do that. Just to give you a kind of a snapshot on kind of the issues that Surprise was dealing with on a really high level, and I apologize for the data. I know we've seen enough data for a lifetime, but just to let you know where we're kind of at in Surprise. Of course, housing affordability. I know we're all dealing with that in Surprise. Didn't escape those issues. 83% of low-income renters are cost burdened. Surprise. Again, that's pre-pandemic. And this Surprise has some of the fastest growing rental rates in the country, along with kind of the rest of Maricopa County. But we our housing affordability kind of looks like everybody else numbers wise, but the causes and the reasons why maybe a little bit of a different. Surprise has a lot of home ownership units, a lot of single family dwellings, and so it's a supply and demand. We just don't have rentals. We don't have the units. Not only there's just a lack of availability, but they just built more single family homes in Surprise than anything else by a large margin. And so we just have a supply and demand that pushes the market even further up. So housing affordability, of course, an issue. And then there has been a growing need. So historically in Surprise, there has been a relatively low population of people experiencing homelessness and unsheltered homelessness. There's history of people couch surfing, families doubling up and things like that. But people on the street, unsheltered, homeless, our numbers have been relatively low. 3 years ago, or even going back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, our PIC count numbers really started to creep up from single digits and in the teens up to in 2020 we had 29, and so that was really starting to creep up. And then where we got into just 2022, our official number is 54. So that's really seeing that continue to grow. Another interesting data point is our HMIS. So we started tracking our HMIS data, getting reports, I think back early 2020. And so that whole year of 2020, we had 169 persons, saying, they're Surprise residents that sought homelessness or housing services reported in HMIS, and that whole 2020 year was 169. And then right after the pandemic started, that first quarter, those numbers absolutely jumped up. And for 2021, those numbers jumped up to 1,012 for 2021. So a lot of that has to do with pandemic and just additional services out there. But again, that need just has really exploded, and we saw that coming. We knew that was going to happen, and then of course the pandemic makes it worse. And of course, the numbers in West Valley have been growing all across. So in FY20, PIC count increased 213%. And then of course COVID, I've already mentioned that, but we were not ready for a pandemic or a crisis in Surprise, and that's kind of where has led us to where we are now. And then really what we've seen is women have been disproportionately affected by pandemic, and our numbers are showing that. So again, the HMIS data showed us that we're before it was mostly men, single men seeking the services. Now it's the largest proportion. It's like 70% of the person seeking services in HMIS are now women, and also youth too. Youth has gone up a lot. Next slide, please. So some of the barriers, and of course we have a ton, just want to highlight kind of the things that we pinpointed and targeted. Where can people get housing services? So there may be resources available, and there were a lot of resources available, but they were in the Central Valley. They were not in the West Valley, not near Surprise, and so that was a huge burden for people seeking services. So we knew that we needed to get those services closer in this way into the West Valley and into Surprise. Lack of available housing units, I kind of talked about that, but we just don't have the supply. And so it's housing affordability is an issue. So stimulus funding, again, showed us that need. So even before the pandemic, we knew we had that need. We needed to get services here. But then when the pandemic hit and all those stimulus funds came, we were not ready, right? We did not have the centralized location or even the location at all to quickly get those resources out, get our residents access to those resources. And so that issue really showed its colors when the stimulus funding started to roll in, and we knew we needed to address that really quickly. And along these lines, the nearest coordinated entry site being in Phoenix, 25 plus miles away from Surprise. What a giant burden for a single mom, 3 kids, living in their car. How is she supposed to get there and get in coordinated entry and get access to those resources? And so we knew we needed to fix that access issue. And then, we all kind of know this, but again, paying attention to the women being affected by COVID. there's less likely to enter traditional shelter. We all know that. And so we knew we needed to find some, more innovative or different ways, something that could serve that population better. And the next slide, please. So,
Adam, may I interrupt you for just a moment?
yep.
My apologies. Chair, I wanted to let you know you do now have quorum if you want to quickly call the meeting to order.
I was on mute. Yeah, let's do that real quickly. So why don't we go ahead and take the roll?
And my apologies, Adam, for interrupting you.
No
We'll
problem.
move through this quickly. Councilmember Wally Campbell. Councilmember Ali Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Tina Condi.
Here.
Vice Mayor Monica Dorsey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jen Duff.
Here.
Councilmember Michelle Hess. Supervisor Steve Gallardo. Vice Mayor Benny Janik.
Here.
Councilmember Joel Navarro. Councilmember Bill Patena.
Here. Uncle Bill, give me a call.
Kathy Tilkey on behalf of Councilmember Amy Yentes.
Here.
And Chair Mark Stewart.
Here.
Thank you. The meeting is called to order at 10:16, Chair.
Thank you, Kelly. Adam, you're on a roll. Great information. Please continue.
All right, thank you. So that's going to go back to like early 2019. We had started ourselves an internal working group, a homeless solutions committee, and so we set ourselves some goals, right? So what did we want to work towards? And so those goals, what we set was we want to create a safety net for those at risk of becoming homeless, because what we saw, again, kind of the little bit of data I showed you, but we knew that we didn't have that large population of unsheltered and homeless, but we have a large population of people at risk of becoming homeless with the affordable housing issues, and just the lack of resources people might be able to reach out to, rental assistance and things. People are at risk, right? And so it was only going to take one natural disaster, recession, or pandemic to really push it over the top. So we knew we needed to address that issue. So we wanted to create that safety net. And then we wanted to end to functional homelessness. And I know that's what we all want, but that was our goal. So that no person, if they do fall into homelessness, is spending any longer than 30 days in homelessness before moving into permanent housing. Again, highlighting permanent housing is what our goal was for people experiencing homelessness. So what does that look like? We want to close the front door into homelessness. So that's diversion and prevention, homelessness proofing, that coordinated entry goal that we have. And we want to get it closer to surprise and discharge planning, a scheduled destination. People come in looking for services. We have a path for them. It's laid out for them, whatever their need was. And so we're not just giving them a service and moving along and not working with them again. And then for people who did fall into homelessness, having a backdoor out of it. So having again, that plan. We wanted a housing focused shelter. Again, not just sheltering people, but giving them a destination. A housing first model, again, was our goal. We want to improve access to rep-free housing, permanent supportive housing. And then affordable housing, of course, has to be a part of that. We have to develop more affordable units. We need the units. Again, we have some resources. We have our tenant-based rental assistance program, other rental resources. We have nowhere to put them. So housing development is one of those goals. Next slide, please. So that's not the first thing we did, but it's what I'm going to talk about first, because it's kind of the most impactful thing that we're doing. And it will bring everything together that we've been working on and guide us, into the future on our responses. So we got CARES money through there's our CDBG, so our CDBG CV money through the CARES Act. And when we were deciding what we wanted to do with that, we did a little bit of mortgage assistance, a little bit of rent assistance, some meal delivery program. But for the bulk of it, I wanted to do really impactful. I wanted to make it an impactful and permanent investment into Surprise and have something that was going to be there after the money was spent. And so my proposal was to develop a housing support center, so a centralized location in Surprise of housing resources. So there could be a one-stop shop where people knew they could come here and get whatever housing resources they need for whatever situation they were in. the project as it developed, we found a property that I'll go over in just a second, but it had 7 apartments, and we could use those for short-term non-congregate housing. Again, it had CARES Act money. It needed to have a COVID relation, so it's that non-congregate housing, and it's that housing-focused shelter. Provide access to permanent housing as quickly as possible, get those people into permanent housing. We knew it needed to be a coordinated entry site, so providing access to the housing resources that exist and bringing that to Surprise. We needed to, again, provide access to the existing rental assistance that we had, like our TBRA program. Had to have those diversion services, safe and effective alternatives to shelter, a place that we can maybe try some new innovative ideas and see how those work. And then provide access to support other supportive housing type services, case management, education resources, finance, whatever those people need to move into permanent housing. And what we did is we partnered with a New Leaf on this. So we found a facility that would work, and then through some conversations we landed on a New Leaf as a really good partner, along with some other regional funding partners, to make the Housing Support Center happen. Next slide, please. So this is the facility that we identified and were able to work with the property owners. So on the left there, it's a temporary housing building. It has 7 units. It also has another unit or a portion that's for, it has laundry services, and it's an office and storage and things like that for the residents of these 7 units. And on the right it has this other building is we call it a social hall, but it's has a community kitchen. It's where the families who are living in the facility can go and eat. And then it has offices in place for services for the residents, so they can come in there and get whatever services they need to move into permanent housing. Next slide, please. So a little bit of history of this property. This is the Mustard Seed property, what it's been known as. So the Mustard Seed Ministries is the nonprofit, and it's a family-owned nonprofit here in Surprise. They've been here forever. They own the Red Eagle Tortilla Factory, still operating in Surprise, and the woman who started all that, Lucy Tronis, she's since passed away, but this was her visions, and she bought this property. It was previously, it was an old motel, and she turned it into the Oasis homeless shelter, and it kind of outlived its usefulness, and she had it torn down, and she built this facility and started construction 2011, 12-ish, and never quite got it right to the finish line. So it was pretty much done, but it just needed the last few touches, and she never really got it open. So we were able to work with that family and get access to it, and finally are going to get it over the finish line and get it open. Next slide, please. So the location of the property again was we felt perfect. We're looking at right off of Grand Avenue in Surprise. So it's where the little red star is the facility. On site is a operating church, and again that we felt like that was going to be a really great partner for a homeless shelter and a services oriented property. So they have been really great partners so far. But it's located really well. So again, close to transportation, right across the road there is our Heritage at Surprise. So HAMC is real close, and we're going to partner with them on services and helping each other out there. Senior centers across the road. There's a rec center. So it's really well located in Surprise to serve this population. The next slide. So the project steps that we took, so that you can all copy it, because it was really simple and easy. We utilized federal funding from HUD, again through the CARES Act, so what we did is we acquired the property through a long-term lease. Through working with the family, they weren't quite ready to sell it, and that was fine. They had their reasons. So what we were able to do is get into a 15-year lease, and we can extend that kind of as far out as we want. But That worked out for us. We're going to utilize our CDBG, our annual CDBG, so non-CARES Act funding every year to pay for the lease. They gave us a real low rate, well below market. So that all worked out. And then we sublease the property to a New Leaf to manage it. It's not something that we felt like we could manage the property on our own. So we sublease the property to them to manage. And then we subgranted other federal funding to them to rehabilitate the 7-unit apartment building. It's not quite done. It's real close, but it does need it needs some rehab to get it open and ready to occupy. And then also New Leaf will operate the housing support center. So they're bringing their services in. They're bringing, coordinated entry, and again, all those services, and then making the partnerships with other organizations to come and bring their resource to the housing support center. Next slide. So just real quick review of the funding sources that we use. Again, we're using our CARES Act. ADO made a grant to a New Leaf to help out with the rehab, and that was mostly their CDBG CV funding. We're using our annual allocation to CDBG. And we got some buy-in from Maricopa County, some of their general fund and some of their CDBG CV. Next slide. So that's the Housing Support Center. And what we want to use that is, again, we set our goals, what we want to do, our strategy for solving homelessness and surprise. So our right as we were really getting rolling again, early 2020, end of 2019, and we had set our goals for ourselves. We set ourselves a pathway. What was a really great timing was, MAG's regional strategy, right? Them doing that and coming up with their action plan, and it gave us a chance to say, okay, let us compare what they're recommending, what came out of that strategy, and what we're doing, and how are we doing, right? And were we on the right path? So what I did is I laid out our strategy, kind of how, within the strategies that MAG laid out in the action plan, and kind of show you that our response and how we're responding to those strategies in the action plan. So again, in the goals on the left that we set for ourselves, again, in diversion and prevention, we want to keep people housed. Eviction prevention, housing preservation, housing counseling, rental assistance, anything to keep people in the house that they're in. And then, of course, diversion is getting people rehoused really quickly without letting them fall into shelter. So we have our Surprise Resource Center. There they have tons and tons of programs, really great center, but they have the community action program, the CAP office is there, they have rental assistance, utility assistance, access to tons and tons of services that people may need. The Housing Support Center, we'll have some diversion services, eviction prevention services, services to keep people housed. And also put our CDBG housing rehab program on here because it's really important to preserve the existing units that we have. It takes one kind of a large expense, a roof caving in, replacing a roof or AC that can get people kicked out of their home. And so preserving those existing affordable units are really important to preventing homelessness. Next slide, please. And so housing, we want to increase affordable housing. In Surprise, we need units. We really do, just like everybody else, but we need rental units. So some affordable housing projects that we've worked on, again, I've mentioned our attendant-based rental assistance program. It's housed 32 families and up to today. HAMC had their Heritage Surprise project. It has 100 units that opened in 2020. They have another project that they're working on. It's a Section 202 senior housing. It's going to bring another 99 units. And Habitat for Humanity is building 4 single-family homes that should open or be occupied in December of this year. And then the Housing Support Center, again, so access to permanent housing is important, where people don't quite get that access right now, or it's difficult. Housing navigation, housing counseling, financial fitness classes, whatever they might need to move into a permanent housing unit. Next slide. Coordination. So this is, again, a big one. We want to work regionally with West Valley partners. So we have several collaboration meetings with our West Valley cities and other partners that we participate in quarterly. And then for a lot of things, we want to improve access to data, and we want to share that data with each other. So we have a surprise area homeless collaborative. Again, we meet quarterly with any partners interested, but also really ones that are focused on housing and homelessness and services. We have a West Valley Human Services Collaborative that kind of fell off a little bit during COVID, but we're hoping to get that going again. We have monthly shower trailer events, again bringing partners together with services, get people connected, and we have a Project Connect event coming up here, I believe in April. Again, bringing people together, coordinating those efforts. Excuse me. Surprise PD and Phoenix Rescue Mission gotten together. We have a new agreement with Phoenix Rescue Mission for unsheltered outreach. PD has a resource officer, and so really going out and starting to engage people who are experiencing homelessness. And then we have a data dashboard that we've started, and we're going to continue to grow. We're collecting housing and homelessness data and coordinating with those partners so we can share that, and we can be coordinating, but targeting the resources where they need to go. And the last next slide, please. And then services, we want, again, improve access to coordinated entry and improve access to services. So we knew that there needed to be a coordinated entry site, and that will be at the Housing Support Center. And then case management, Housing Support Center. So again, give people that path, give them a plan into permanent housing. And again, I'll mention the Surprise Resource Center, all the things that they do. That this is such a small list of all the stuff, but educational, financial, community referrals, public benefit assistance, social services. We have an agreement with iHelp for their shelter services. So they have case management there, and then food assistance there as well. And I think that was the last slide. So, oh no, one more. Oh yeah, shelter. Hello. Let's talk about shelter. It's the most exciting part. We knew we needed to improve access to housing focused shelter, right? We all need more shelter, but we wanted it to be housing focused, get people into shelter, into permanent housing. And we knew we needed to work regionally as well. So Northwest iHelp, again, we have a contract with them. They offer up to 12 emergency beds per night. And so, really hoping that they can expand and find more churches and facilities. Again, the Housing Support Center will have 7 units of non-congregate temporary housing. Referrals to iHelp, so people that won't kind of work out at the Housing Support Center, maybe iHelp works for them. And then again, coordinated entry, get people access to the resources that exist. We didn't really do the hotel motel stays, kind of like everybody else did. We're piloting a couple small book programs to see how that might work out. We don't have a whole lot of motels in Surprise. But we're trying a little bit to see how that goes, and we'll keep an eye on that and see how that might fit into the overall plan. And then next slide. Okay, yeah, that was it. So I can really mention, one of the things that everything that we're doing that made it really simple was council support. I mean, Vice Mayor Klein has been a champion for us, and we super appreciate, but our council has been super supportive, unanimous support of everything that we're doing. And of course, that has made it really, really easy for us to do a lot of this stuff. So we can't thank them enough. And again, thank you, Vice Mayor Klein, for her support. And I'm ready for any questions.
Adam, thank you. I mean, what a comprehensive approach, and the way you presented it, I can visualize a lot of the things that you're doing, and I'm sure it's creating some real impact in your community. We would like to open it up to some questions. If anybody had any particular questions about the presentation or anything that they'd like to add. Okay, well, we're grateful for that presentation, Adam. I can tell you that as comprehensive as your program is, it's similar to what we're doing here in Chandler, and I think a lot of Valley cities. If we can get that first touch and get somebody help, even if it's that hotel room or that initial service, and let them know all the service that the community can provide, we're seeing anywhere from 70, 80, sometimes 90% effectiveness in getting them into permanent housing. and then helping folks get on with their lives and moving in a direction that they want to be. Even those that are mentally affected, which is a big issue here, as well as the number of units. So sounds like you guys are doing a great job, and this is fantastic information. I'd love to see your deck. I'm sure you've shared it with Leah in our office, or she's seen some version of it, but I'd love to get a copy of that deck if I don't already have it, Kelly, because I'd like to share that with my team. And I don't know if anybody else would like to see it.
Chair, we're happy to send all 3 decks from today out to the committee after the meeting. They're also posted to the website for the committee on the MAG website, and I can also share that.
Thank you very much.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
along these lines, I'd like to ask just one question as far as the other cities that we have here, what they're doing is we're having a problem with investors coming in and buying apartment complexes or units, and they'll drop the Section 8 program. And so like never before, we have hundreds of people that we have vouchers for, but we can't get units. And we're doing a lot of outreach in order to try to get more landlords to do that. Is any experience this problem? What do we do with these people who, to no fault of their own, they're being evicted, and they're on the Section 8 program and we can't find the housing for them? Is anybody finding any solutions to that?
Vice Chair Duff, we're experiencing the same issue in Chandler. Yeah, it's quite the dilemma. Has anybody found any success with battling that, or is this more of it might be more of a legislative issue? I'm not sure.
I know. This is Betty Janik. We're having the same problem in Scottsdale. We have plenty of vouchers. The amount of money available per voucher was increased, and still we don't have people who are willing to participate. So I think this is a problem that needs management at a higher level. Hopefully we can get it.
Yeah, so I think that information, and Vice Mayor Duff's, that information is something I want to take back to our government resource manager, our advocate down at the League of Cities, and then maybe it's a conversation, Kelly, that we can broach with the League of Cities to see if we can get some action around that. I don't know what that would be, but there are people that are in that space that might be a little bit more versed on it that can help us at least get behind something and support maybe a resolution or some sort of action to at least let them know the challenges that we're having, because I think we're all experiencing it. Is that something we can do, Kelly?
Yes, Chair Stewart. And actually we have open office hours with HUD on Fridays. And so I can take this to our HUD office hours tomorrow and ask if there are legal parameters that cities can use to try to maintain Section 8 programming.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think, yeah, just let us know what you find out. If it's something that has to be ordinance based, that's a little more challenging than something that would maybe come from the legislature in the form of a bill. That would be more comprehensive, but I'll wait to hear what you get back from HUD. Thank you. Any other comments? Great feedback. All right, super.
Can I just add one more thing? And I just wanted to know from other cities what they're doing about it. It's kind of related to housing or homelessness. Is what are other cities doing about the parked RVs that are just crowding our neighborhoods and everywhere? And we give them notice and they move a few feet down the road and then they're back. But a lot of people are living out of RVs and there's not appropriate places for them to be. And what do you do? I mean, it's impacting neighborhoods and businesses, but I don't know what we do about it. They keep on. Neighbors complain, businesses complain, and they move down the road a few feet and they're back. It's just an ongoing issue.
What we did in Scottsdale is we opened up Westworld. We have a lot of vacant land there. And we opened up Westworld for that type of temporary housing. And it's been successful. It's been successful.
Thank you.
May I ask a question of Councilmember Janik about that for the homeless team, for our homeless work regionally? Councilmember Janik, at Westworld, are there homeless service providers coming in to interact with those individuals to see if they need additional services?
I do not know the answer to that question. But I know we have very active organizations that we work with through the city to provide all the services that Adam referred to. So I would expect that we would be, but I will check into that and I will get back to you on it. Good question. Thank you.
It's a great question. Absolutely, Kelly. Yeah, if we could chase that down, that would be extremely impactful. Okay. Well, great feedback on this topic. And you know, as we talked in the initial, you know, months ago, Vice Mayor Duff, about kind of some of the areas of focus that we want to be focused on in this committee is continuing to talk about the homelessness issue. This will be a common theme as we continue. And I think it's something we're all feeling. I'm going to jump out of line here real quick, Kelly, and take a motion to approve the minutes. I'm hoping that everybody's had a chance to review those. Anybody see any anomalies that they'd like to address? And if not, I'd take a motion to approve real quick.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Duff to approve the minutes, and a second by, I didn't catch it real quick. Who was that?
Allie Klein.
Vice Mayor Klein with a second. And without any negative feedback, we'll just take a motion of, just raise your hands and we'll take a motion of approval rather than going through the entire roll. Motion approves, or the motion is approved by show of hands.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That takes us to item number 5, presented by Katrina Lopez, a human trafficking coordinator with the Clores Community Base. The program is part of the Chicanos por la Causa's work in our region. This item is on your agenda for information and discussion. And Katrina, thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for your time and for allowing me to present today on our program. It's for human trafficking program with CPLC de Colores. Next slide, please. So, brief introduction. My name is Karina Lopez. I'm the human trafficking coordinator with and I work with human trafficking survivors. Prior to that, I was a victim advocate here with De Colores. So I've been with De Colores for about 3 years now. Next slide, please. I'll give you a little bit of background information about CPLC and how it all started. CPLC is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1969 to fight discrimination against the Mexican American community. It focuses on 5 core areas with health, human services, housing, education, economic development, and advocacy. We have offices in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and in Texas, and we impact more than 2 million lives a year. Next slide, please. So De Colores is a division of CPLC, and we're dedicated to serving survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Next slide, please. So the Colores Domestic Violence Shelter opened its doors in 1986 to help provide emergency shelter to families dealing with the effects of domestic violence and abuse. Next slide, please. So due to an identified community need for DV and SV services, in 2016, the community-based program opened its doors. The main goal of the community-based program is to provide trauma-informed as well as survivor-focused services to clients outside of shelter and in the community. And both De Colores Shelter and De Colores Community-Based Program provide case management, lay legal advocacy, housing programs, youth programs, support groups, as well as aftercare and follow-up services to anyone leaving the Colores Shelter. All services that are provided by both the Colores Community-Based and Shelter are optional as to respect of the autonomy and specific needs of each individual survivor. Next slide, please. So with all the introductions of the program and the services out the way, let's talk a little bit more about human trafficking and what is human trafficking. Next slide, please. Human trafficking is the illegal trade in human beings through recruitment or abduction by means of force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of forced labor and debt bondage or sexual exploitation. Next slide, please. So where is human trafficking happening? Human trafficking is both a domestic and global crime, with victims trafficked within their own country to neighboring countries and between continents. So human trafficking is happening everywhere, even here in the US, and victims can be US citizens or of any nationality, sex, age, socioeconomic status, or gender. Globally, it is estimated that 71% of enslaved people are women and girls, while men and boys account for 29%. And 1 in 4 victims of modern day slavery are children. So next slide, please. Vulnerabilities. So poverty, individuals that come from a low income background can fall victims to human trafficking. Homelessness, people without a place to live can be easy targets for traffickers. Temporary workers are also vulnerable to human trafficking. Lack of immigration status, so not having a legal way to work in the US, can also circle back to poverty and lack of basic needs, as well as lack of economic opportunities. Language barriers are also a big one. So not being able to speak English to report a crime is being committed. So women and children also. Again, as mentioned earlier, women account for 71% of human trafficking. And when it comes to child sex trafficking, it is important to note that there's no such thing as child prostitution. It is always, always, always considered sex trafficking of a minor because a child cannot consent to sex. Next slide, please. Traffickers' tactics. So traffickers use a variety of coercive methods to control their victims, which can include luring their victims with false promises of economic opportunities, also withholding ID, work authorization, or travel documents, demanding repayment for a real or an alleged debt, or using threats or violence or monitoring or surveillance activities, and paying very little or not paying at all for work. Okay, next slide, please. So the different types of human trafficking, there's sex exploitation, forced labor, and debt bondage, which can also be domestic servitude. Next slide, please. So sexual exploitation refers to sex trafficking victims that are manipulated or forced against their will to engage in sexual acts for money. So sex traffickers, again, may use violence, threats, manipulation, or promise of love and affection to lure victims. Some of the places victims are forced to sell sex can be truck stops, hotel rooms, rest areas, street corners, clubs, and private residences. Next slide, please. Forced labor. So through force, fraud, or coercion, victims are made to work for little or no pay at all. So very often victims are forced to manufacture or grow products that we use and consume every day. Victims of forced labor could be found in factories, farms, doing construction work, and more. Next slide, please. So debt bondage. Debt bondage occurs when a person is forced to work to pay off a debt. Most or all the money they earn goes to pay off that debt. So when it comes to human trafficking, one example of debt bondage is through domestic servitude. Domestic servitude can be the seemingly normal practice of live-in help that is used to cover for the exploitation and control of someone, usually from another country. So this form of slavery happened when migrant workers reach a destination country and they incur a debt for their travel and or a recruitment fee, and traffickers will then demand repayment of that real or alleged debt. So next slide, please. So there's human smuggling versus human trafficking. So often the terms human smuggling and human trafficking are used synonymously, but they're actually very different. When it comes to human smuggling, it's a crime that's being committed against the sovereignty of a country, as opposed to human trafficking, the crime itself is being committed against a person. Also, human trafficking is the illegal border crossing, while human smuggling is the illegal border crossing, while human trafficking involves forced labor or commercial sex acts. And when it comes to human smuggling, there's typically a consent element. So the person that's being smuggled into the country is aware that they're breaking a law and they're coming into the country illegally. When it comes to human trafficking, there's no consent element, and the person has never consented to being part of human trafficking. So with human smuggling, there's often just transportation involved. As we know, with human trafficking, it can be either sex or labor involved. And it doesn't require transportation. It can be an element, but it's not mandatory. With human smuggling, it typically ends at the arrival of the destination, and it can be a gateway to human trafficking. So with human trafficking, debt smuggling can be used as a means of control. Next slide, please. So now we get into a little bit more about the CPLC de Colores program and what it's doing to help human trafficking survivors. Next slide, please. So about the human trafficking transitional housing program, CPLC de Colores community-based program saw a need in the community for human trafficking survivors and added a human trafficking transitional housing program. Next slide, please. So program eligibility requirements are that the survivor be over the age of 18, again, a survivor of human trafficking, either labor or sex trafficking, and must have been trafficked within the last 5 years. Next slide, please. So the Human Trafficking Transitional Housing Program offers assistance to its participants and their dependents for a maximum length of 24 months. They work closely with housing navigators to help them place them and their families in transitional housing in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Next slide, please. Once a suitable unit is located, survivors and dependents will transition into their units and supportive services will be offered. Those services can include financial assistance with rent, housing-related expenses, a welcome home box, case management, legal advocacy, as well as therapy services, support groups, assistance applying for Medicaid or food stamps, food boxes, clothing donations, pet adoptions, hygiene products, and many more. Next slide. And that is it. Thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or call me. That's my information.
Karina, thank you so much for that presentation and the work that you're doing. I mean, this is clearly an issue I think we're all aware of, and it's something that's tragic, and it's happening in our neighborhoods and right under our noses. So I'm grateful that you and your team are taking steps in a stand to help, and we're all probably in alignment here, and we want to do whatever we can to prevent. But I did want to open it up to questions. If anybody had any questions about the presentation or just about the topic in general, this would be a good time to open that. Thank you.
Sure. I do want to mention the program OVC is it's funded through OVC grant, and originally we were only allowed 9 clients for the program. So funding was only going to cover for 9 clients, but they've extended it to 12 clients. So we have 3 spaces available because originally we had all 9 clients, and now we've opened it up for 3 more clients. So if you do know of anyone or come across someone that's, again, over the age of 18, a survivor of either sex labor or labor trafficking, just send them over our way to CPLC and we can work the system.
Sure. And this might be an opportunity, Kelly, for us to work with our neighborhood services to put information out on our pages, possibly from an awareness perspective, so that people that can take advantage of this might be able to do so.
Sure, Chair. I can follow up with Karina to get that information and email everybody on the.
Thank you. Yeah, we can push. You know, if you guys have a website or a page or a contact form or anything like that, we can ask our services director to push that forward. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. We definitely have flyers too. I can share those with Kelly as well.
Super. Any comments or questions? You know, I want to add one quick thought here. So on the 6th of February, you know, a number of elected leaders here in the Southeast Valley, as well as a number of faith leaders, connected on Night of Hope. and we talked specifically about human trafficking and the challenges that cities like Chandler, Gilbert, anyone that's on this call are facing. And it's pretty intense when you understand the details around the age at which children in our neighborhoods are being connected, are connecting with possible human trafficking mules or whatever we call them today. And I hadn't realized what an incredibly pervasive problem this is becoming. I would take, and this is probably not my role as chairman of this committee. I'm supposed to facilitate the process, but it's something that touched me deeply when I learned about it. And it's something that we're working on diligently in Chandler, and we might even stand up a larger part of our police force to focus on this, especially from cybercrime and things like that. And I just want you all to know that the Night of Hope is something you can all follow on Facebook. It's something you can all be a part of maybe in a passive way and just from an awareness perspective. But it's something I would recommend that you all look into, and maybe even in your communities. And I'll leave it at this. The Super Bowl here is one of the most egregious times for human trafficking. It happens every year in the cities where the Super Bowl happens. I don't know why, but it just does. And we're making a stand in Chandler, and a number of other East Valley communities are doing the same, that we're not going to allow it in our town. And we're going to share the story that human trafficking is not acceptable in our community now, and especially during the Super Bowl and thereafter. And so, I don't know if there's a pledge or anything like that, but we did it in public, and we'll continue to elevate the conversation around this subject as we get closer to that date. But I just wanted to share that. Thank you for letting me step out. And I wasn't trying to steal anybody's thunder here, because your presentation was great, Karina, and thank you for sharing so much. Anybody else want to comment? Okay.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll move on to item number six, House of Refuge, Sunny Slope. This part of the presentation will be presented by Julie Supley, the CEO of House of Refuge in Sunny Slope. And this item is on for information and discussions. Please take it away. Thanks, Julie.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Stewart. And thank you, everyone. As a nonprofit, it's so encouraging to see all of you in your roles coming together regularly to look at these issues. So just thank you. It's very encouraging. I'm Julie Supley. I'm the CEO of House of Refuge Sunny Slope, and we are a transitional housing program in Phoenix in the Sunny Slope neighborhood. Which is a concentrated area of homelessness for the city of Phoenix. And today I just want to tell you a little bit about us, our approach, and some of the results we get and what we're looking to do in the future. So Adam, I so enjoyed your presentation of the things that the City of Surprise is doing. And we've been tackling homelessness since 1988. We're just started our 34th year of providing housing. We're a faith-based transitional housing program. And we currently have one program for men where we can house and serve 35 men at a time. And then we also have a program for women, and we can house and provide for 22 women. 12 of those can be single moms with children with us. And we just work with them. Our mission is love, house, equip. And I'll kind of walk you through how we do that today. If you could switch the screen for me, thank you. I think the PowerPoint will catch up with me here, but I just wanted to share that our model is really to focus on the newly homeless is where we focus on. And thank you very much. So what we try and do, as you all know, that as people, many different factors will have them kind of on this slide down into homelessness. And our niche is really to catch people as they're fairly newly homeless, and then we can reroute them back into permanent housing, independent living that they would have. And part of our program is with us, every resident is required to have a full-time job. They don't have to have it when they move in, but they need to. And in this market, fortunately, they're able to find that very quickly, is to work full-time. And while they're working full-time during the day, they will also pay to live here at a very subsidized rate. And we take 25% of those program fees that they pay to us, and we set it aside in a savings account program for them. So when they leave, they have money to help them get established. Sobriety is non-negotiable, and we have a very focused community structure, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we find people, as they have been falling into homelessness, isolation kicks in, and you all know that as well. And so what we do is we're very intensive on having community structure for them. So depending on where you're at in our program, every resident will be in community 2 to 4 evenings a week. And that would be an evening meal where they're eating a meal together and then having classes. We also have volunteers that come in as mentors and join us during those times. So they're also forming relationships in the community that are helping them to be equipped as they move on. And then we do action plans or case management towards their independence, and helping them to identify those gaps that they need help in learning, in education, and assistance to get them to that permanent housing. Our men and women can stay here up to 12 months, and our single moms can be with us 24 months, much like the program that Karina mentioned. I want to share with you, if you can flip the slide, is just a couple of examples of how our model has worked. On the left, we have Danielle and her son, Jojo, and he is as mischievous as he looks. We love this family. And Danielle battled with addiction. She was homeless on the street when she came to us, and she had lost, through that addiction, she had lost custody of her son. And so she was able to come individually as a woman into our program and use that case management or action plans to do the things she needed to do to receive custody of her son. And so the great thing is she was able to stay in our same program, in the same community, and moved over into an apartment on her own where her and Jojo could learn to become a family again and do that. She ended up staying a total of with us about 2.5 years, about 6 months on her own. And then once she had Jojo for 2 years. The other thing she did, and we talk a lot about, is on the equipping side. And as I've heard you guys talk about the affordable housing, there's 2 parts to that. One is the cost of housing, and the other is the wages that you earn. And so we try and focus on both of those. How can we help them to be career ready? And so Danielle took classes to become a peer support specialist. And she left us about a year ago. She's currently a peer support specialist with Community Bridges. And so she's helping other people through the same process that she did. On the right, real quickly, is Nestor, a nice young man that moved here from out of state and could not find housing and a job, and came to us. And through case management, we found out that he wanted to become a commercial truck driver. He loved being by himself. He loved driving, being on the road. And so through our career readiness program, we were able to scholarship him and to a truck driving school. And what that entailed is we scholarshiped him to cover some of his living expenses as well as tuition. And then the school gave him a grant, but also part of the plan for him was that he had to save money to help pay some of that tuition. And we try and do that a lot, where people feel a part of those achievements that they're doing. And Nestor successfully completed that. He got his commercial driver's license, and he left us after about 6 months of being here, but he was hired on in a training position at $23 an hour. And so that will enable him going forward to stay in permanent housing and be able to afford it. So the next slide, please. Community is critical, and I wanted to share with you kind of our approach to housing, and much I saw some of the similarities that Adam had mentioned. We have a real neighborhood focus, and you can see here we're on 7th Street in Phoenix, north of Mountain View, which is really between Dunlap and Peoria, here in Sunny Slope. And you can see the red, the blue is our men's housing. Around that yellow is kind of our men's center. That is the main hub of our men's program. And so after a man has been with us about 60 days, they transition into a house and actually live in a 5-bedroom house where they have their own bedroom. They're in community with people in the house, their community when they come to the men's campus for those dinners and classes, and then they're in a neighborhood setting. And we think that's important too, that they feel like they are part of a neighborhood and they're living more independently, much like the permanent housing that we hope they will find when they leave. On the purple in the lower left is where we have 2 homes where our women live that are here without children. And then the green are all apartments that our single moms have. So every single mom has her own apartment so that she can be a closed family unit with her children. And so a neighborhood feel focusing on the community is really important to our program. And the next slide talks about how we're also trying to be in community with community partners. We've been focusing on this quite a bit, and I heard a lot of that in these presentations today too. We've had a long-standing relationship with St. Mary's Food Bank. We use their grocery rescue program to have all of our food needs met, and that provides 180 tons of food for us every year that we use to feed our residents and also to share with other ministries or nonprofits. And then we have a couple men that are enrolled in a Habitat for Humanity construction training program right now. And again, that's on that career readiness to get people the skills they need to have the sustainable wages. And then we've worked with St. Joseph the Worker. We're really fortunate. Arizona at Work, which many of you are probably familiar with, is about a block away from our facility. So we work closely with them. And then we have just recently started working with Grand Canyon with a intern that's coming in this September to work with us as well. So we're always trying to grow the community partners and be very collaborative. The next slide is just what we're doing going forward. And our future vision is to have a women's center. I mentioned, you could see on the map, we have a men's center that's at the hub of all the men's housing. We've been serving women for 12 years, and we're still leasing space at a church in our neighborhood that we only have access to about 4 hours a week. So the women's programs are just not getting as much of that community feel. And so we're excited. We've purchased a property that will enable us to build a women's center. And we think we'll see much more traction as we get that in place and work through a lot of things. And that will also, that same property will allow us to expand housing for women. And many of you know that our single moms program is always full. There is such a demand for women with their children to live. And I think Adam mentioned it, they shy away from shelters because of their children. So it's very much in demand to have more of these apartment units for them. And then we also hope to provide more alumni services so that when people leave us, that as they encounter some bumps in the road, that they would be able to come to us and we could help them through that so that they're not going back into that homeless cycle. And unfortunately, I have seen, I've been here almost 11 years, that it can be just a small thing that can disrupt that and do that. So we're always looking ways that we can share resources that many of you provide with those alumni that have left us. So that's a brief overview of what we do. And again, our mission is 3 simple words: love, house, and equip, and really help people to find that permanent housing when they leave. Our goal is that we would be the last housing program that they would be in. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and just thank you for the time to share what we're doing here in Sunny Slope.
So do we have any thoughts or questions from the floor? It's great information, Julie. It's incredible
Thank you.
what every community is doing in their own way, and this grassroots approach is really starting to work, and as testament by the work you're doing.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. These kinds of programs are really important, and working with whether it's working with people who have abuse issues, or whether it's people who are just, for some reason, that paycheck to paycheck process just didn't work for them. Something always is the one thing that sends people out onto the street. So thank you for what you do. It's a wonderful program, and I'm sure Adam is taking notes and seeing things that we can incorporate into our processes here in Surprise as well. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And I loved what you guys are doing. I'm hoping too that I can get that deck and share some of that and look at that. So thank you.
And Julie, I really like the fact that you're working on an alumni organization, the realization that people sometimes slip back into previous behaviors, and that's acknowledged. And I think that's very innovative that you're working on that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think we all know that working poor group is the most likely to slide into homelessness and just rotate through that cycle over and over again.
Well said. Well said.
Sure, Stuart, if I could just brag real quick about House of Refuge in Sunny Slope. I had the opportunity to recently take a tour, and one of the elements that I found most moving is that they also work very closely with recently individuals who are coming out of incarceration, who may not have another option for housing or for employment. And they walk alongside those folks to really give them a second chance in life. And that is, it's an incredibly special ministry, because as you know, previous convictions may prohibit you from participating in certain programs, et cetera. And House of Refuge Sunny Slope welcomes those folks, which is really important to our community too.
It certainly is. Well, thanks for sharing that, Kelly. It's good work, Julie. And you know,
thank you.
We look at the conversations that we've had today, and we look at this comprehensive approach that starts, you know, with the funding at the state level and even federal. And then as it wiggles its way down to MAG, and then the different cities and everybody working together, the city managers talking, the different neighborhood services committee members talking, and then for us to sit from a having the political will in our communities to continue to elevate the conversation has been incredibly important. And I'm just grateful for everybody that's on this call that continues to share these stories, because all of this helps. So yeah, thank you. Any other questions for Julie before we move on to the next discussion topics? Okay. Well, let's move on to item number 7, which is a request for future agenda items. So we'll open the floor right now, and Kelly will take some notes feverishly about ideas that we might have, and to continue these conversations about how to help our community. Maybe I'll spark the ideation here. Would we like to continue to talk a little bit more about homeless? I'm really intrigued to see a little bit deeper dive into the point in time count, and really get some analysis on that and see where the biggest factors are, because I know that units is a big number, mental health, there's a number of different factors, but really get a comprehensive approach to see what our point in time numbers really are giving us back, so we can use some data and share that with our respective departments. Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay.
We can easily coordinate that, Chair.
Would anybody else like to talk about anything else?
Chair, one thing I'd like to suggest is housing is such an issue, the shortage of housing. And there are quite a few things at the state level that prohibits cities from doing some programs, or maybe we could have more assistance in being able to get some affordable housing, to having housing. There's all kinds of things going on legislatively, trying to get around cities even having, like they're planning and zoning boards, and hopefully that won't gain traction. But then we need to find that middle ground of being able to expedite housing and look at legislative things that maybe would open it up and make it easier to build housing, to maybe to have accessory dwelling units, for the contractor guarantees for 10 years so they don't make for sale units, they always do rental. There's a lot of things around housing that I think if we join together, we could lobby for some changes that would serve our cities.
Absolutely. And Kelly, maybe we can dive, get a little bit deeper into what that might look like, right? And I think that gets back to Vice Chairman Duff's point about there's the factors that are preventing housing from going up, from supply chain to NIMBYism to a number of different things that are happening. I know that would be a valuable conversation. So maybe we can understand a little bit deeper on what's going on in each community. And then that could be information we take back to the league, right? So they can lobby.
We can invite Joan Service from the Arizona Housing Coalition to come and do a legislative update. She watches very closely what's happening at both state and national legislation related to housing. And I'm sure she would be pleased to come and update you all on where we're at in June.
That'd be great.
Great topic. Thank you, Vice Chair. We usually do 2 or 3 topics a meeting. Does anybody else have any other ideas, or do we want to kind of stay in those 2 and really expand on those and have a deeper discussion?
I would like to continue on talking about housing and opportunities, and I would really love to have be smarter about legislative issues that are coming up and aware of. We have a great InterGov, Jody, who's on the call with us today, who has some information, but being able to have, for me to be more aware of what's going on, and like you said, so that we can propose to our legislators how they can help us help the process as opposed to hinder us in the process, I think would be great.
Yeah, that's a great feedback. You know, we know what's going on in our own community. A lot of times at the legislature, you know, they're busy, and I know everyone, either side of the aisle are trying to help. They just are not as in touch with what's happening at the local level as we are. And so having some information, having a discussion about that we could take back again and lobby, or be a little bit more of a force as a MAG organization as it relates to influence would be important for us. So great idea, Vice Mayor. Okay. I think we'll move on to item number 8. Do we have any comments from the committee? Anything anybody'd like to share? Any successes or information that would be valuable to the rest of the community?
I'll share, Vice Mayor, Vice Chair, I guess. A program that we are instilling in our 911 calls right now. We're partnering with Solari and expanding what we're doing there. And so in crisis 911 calls, mental health, suicide, whatever is going on, we're having a person in our dispatch kind of listening in and everything and directing, hey, that's a key, and diverting it to their crisis counselors by phone. Or we also have dedicated mobile units we're sending out now, teams of 2, and going to the person instead of dispatching police or fire. Now, there may be some instances where police and fire are needed because the medical or safety, maybe they have a weapon and they're threatening suicide or stuff like that. But we're just starting this program, and I'm really thrilled about how we can divert those kind of calls away from public safety and into the mental health professionals to serve our community better. So we're just kind of eased into it last June. We're having more dedicated resources on that, or using some ARPA dollars to fund it for 2 years and to really expand and get in deeper. So I'm excited about that, and we'll see how it goes. Our preliminary kind of pilot went well, and it might be a model that we could follow up with and present to other cities to see if it works for them in their public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. It actually could be a topic, right? It could be a presentation, right? That sharing the program and successes could be something we add to the June agenda as well. So we'll let Kelly decide if we've got room for that, and if not, we'll definitely talk about it the next one. Is that okay with everyone?
June might be a little preliminary. We've been doing the co-location, but we're beefing it up and doing more dedicated units as far as the mobile teams. We have mobile teams now, but it's been delayed response. Anyway, so I would really like to see when it's the full-fledged program. Our pilot went fine. There was some tweaks that we needed to make, and that's why we're dedicating the funding to really dig in deeper. So I would say, maybe 6 months in from now would be a more appropriate time so we could have better analytics.
Great. Well, it's a brilliant tactic. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I'll circle back with you, Vice Mayor Duff, to get that scheduled in 6 months.
Any other comments from the committee?
This is Tina Condi with the City of Avondale. I just wanted to share that in our city, we are in the process of developing a new homeless service division. And so we actually just hired a new homeless service manager, Brian Planty. And so he has a lot of experience in housing development and human services. And so I know a lot of our presenters today, are Central Phoenix, in Surprise and the West Valley. But, I would love to maybe see if we can invite him, to one of the future meetings to talk about what we're doing here in Avondale. So that's one thing. And then another thing too, I don't know if any of you know that here in the West Valley, we have a Southwest Family Advocacy Center where we provide services for victims of child sex crimes. And it's actually a partnership with Avondale, Goodyear, Buckeye, and MCSO. And it's actually a facility where the victims can go and get examinations rather than going to a hospital. And we have rooms where they can get interviewed that are set up just like a living area. So I would love to see, provide more information to this group here so that we all know the services that are being provided in the West Valley.
Thank you, Tina, for sharing that. That's impactful for sure, and a great share for the rest of us to be aware of. Thank you. That's what this meeting is about, right? Continue to communicate, and these great ideas we can take back to our cities for those of us that don't already have something like that. So thank you very much, Tina.
Sure.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, well, I can maybe give us 7 minutes back, take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We've got a motion to adjourn by Vice Chair Duff and Vice Mayor Klein with the second. With that, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you everyone for being here. Have a great day, and thanks for all of your input and your passion for helping our communities.